Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I called in a favor, and the rain held off, and I think that's a good sign because we are so honored to have the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada with us. And I am just so happy to be part of the team, and I am so inspired by your leadership and so happy. We are also joined by Cully Robinson, who is the Topic-Mactaquac candidate. And of course, Dominique Leblanc, le candidat pour Beau Séjour. And even though I love you all and you're great supporters, I think you want to hear from Mr. Justin Trudeau. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jenica. First of all, thank you all for coming out, but more importantly, thank you for stepping up in such a big way for Jenica right across the riding. I've seen the numbers coming in, the energy here. Everyone is just moving forward in the right way. Thank you for everything you're doing. It's great to be here with Cully as well, and this guy, I guess he comes along with me in lots of places in New Brunswick. I didn't invite him, he just shows up because he knows New Brunswick, but sorry, I did bring him on the plane from Halifax, but great to have you here. But mostly, I'm so excited about what we're seeing right here on the ground for Jenica, and quite frankly, what we're seeing across the country. Is that Canadians, even as people are tired, as people have come out of this pandemic and know that there's still some work to do, as if we're being honest, people are like, oh really, do we have to have an election? And the conversations that you're having at the doors are answering with a resounding, yes, we do have to have an election now, because the decisions we're taking as a country, the decisions we're taking about what the next months hold, what the next years and even decades hold, they're being taken now. They're being taken in the coming weeks when this government gets back to office. We need to make big choices about how to end this pandemic and how to build a stronger future for everyone, not a year from now, not 2 years from now, but now. And that's why Canadians are faced with such a clear and important choice in this election. On sait que les 18 mois qu'on vient de passer ont été extrêmement difficiles. Mais on a vu à travers le pays ce qu'il y a de meilleur en nous. Les gens ont été là les uns pour les autres, les voisins pour les voisins, les jeunes pour les aînés pour les familles. Tout le monde a fait sa part, et c'est pour ça, en grande partie, pourquoi le Canada a mieux passé cette pandémie que beaucoup d'endroits dans le monde. We got through this pandemic because Canadians stepped up and stayed true to who we are. We are people who are there for each other, who support each other, who stand up for each other. And quite frankly, that's what we knew we had to do as a government when we were faced with this pandemic. So every day in those early days when I was coming out of my house to talk to Canadians we were all facing this massive uncertainty, who knew what it meant, having a shutdown, having to deal with terrible losses and terrible fears. We knew as a government that we had to have your backs. And that's exactly what we did. We delivered the CERB. We delivered the wage subsidy. We delivered supports for businesses, for seniors, for families. And every step of the way, conservatives were busy telling us, no, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. Well, not only were they wrong, because what Canadians do is we support each other, but they were wrong because it was also the right thing to do for our economy. We knew that supporting small businesses like this place, to have them be able to hold through a time where there were restrictions, there were shutdowns, but be able to reopen quickly on the other side was the best way to ensure a strong economy today and for the future, for our kids and future generations. Doing the right things immediately to support people guaranteed that our economy would come back faster, and that's what we're seeing across the country. Right now, we've recovered 95% of all the jobs lost during the pandemic. For context, the US, which has also bouncing back quickly, has only recovered about 76%. We're doing well because, as Canadians, we were there for each other. We didn't allow ourselves to be divided. We allowed ourselves to work together across party lines at the premiers and prime ministers level, and we delivered for Canadians. Mais maintenant, on se trouve dans un moment de réflexion et de choix. Parce qu'on doit choisir comment on va en finir avec cette pandémie et quelles seront nos priorités pendant qu'on rebâtit. Qu'est-ce qu'on a appris de cette pandémie? Et pour moi, c'est très, très clair ce que j'ai appris personnellement à être à la tête d'un gouvernement qui était, Dominique le sait, il était en charge de beaucoup d'éléments de notre réponse COVID. On était en train d'innover, de se pousser, de créer des nouvelles politiques, de livrer avec urgence des appuis pour les Canadiens. On a appris comment gérer et passer à travers une crise. And just as we were there to support everyone through this pandemic crisis, we know we have to step up even harder and faster with the same enthusiasm, with the same creativity, with the same conviction on the climate crisis, on the housing crisis, on reconciliation, on childcare, on all the things that we know make a huge difference in people's lives. But if we're going to do that, we need Canadians with us. We need a resounding choice by Canadians to say, you know what, we learned a lot about how vulnerable so many people in this country are, but we also learned a lot about how much we're going to have to do to secure a stronger future, to thrive into the coming generations. So that's what we're going to do. And we've laid out an incredibly ambitious plan for this country that is so exciting, but quite frankly, requires everyone to step up and choose to move forward. Choose to move forward for everyone. That's what we're doing. First and foremost, we have to end this pandemic for good. Et pour en finir avec la pandémie, c'est très simple, c'est la vaccination. We have to be determined and unequivocal on vaccines. Fortunately, this Liberal team did an amazing work in procuring vaccines. So we have vaccines for everyone who's eligible already in this country, months ahead of schedule. They're waiting for those of us who haven't yet gotten vaccinated. And I know, as good Liberals, you guys are probably all vaccinated, but you all know people who haven't yet been vaccinated or are still hesitating. It's time for them to go get vaccinated as well. And that's why we are showing that kind of leadership, because, quite frankly, close to 80% of eligible Canadians have done the right thing and gotten vaccinated. You all stepped up and did your part, not just for yourselves, not just for our elders or our kids who can't get vaccinated, but also for the frontline health workers who've had an incredibly difficult year and a half, saving lives, keeping Canadians healthy, and are still dealing with this fourth wave of so many unvaccinated people across the country who are unfortunately falling sick because they haven't yet made the choice. So the only thing we can do as a government, the thing we have to do as a government, is ensure that as many people as possible get vaccinated. Because when you do that, because by not getting vaccinated, people who are making that personal choice that Mr. O'Toole is so keen on defending, he's actually impacting all of your personal freedoms and abilities. Because not only are we at the risk of having our kids who can't yet get vaccinated get the virus, not only are we at risk of further shutdowns, further lockdowns, and people not being able to get into emergency rooms because they're filled with unvaccinated people who are catching COVID, but we're also slowing down the return to the things we all want to do and slowing down the recovery of our economy. That's why, as a government, we are unequivocal If you want to get on a plane or a train, you're going to need to be vaccinated. If you want to work for the federal public service, you're going to need to be vaccinated. And for provinces, like I just heard, New Brunswick has decided that they're moving forward on vaccine certification, proof of vaccinations, vaccine passports, whatever you want to call it. The federal government will foot the bill, because we know to get back to the things we want to do, whether it's having a beer in a pub, going to a restaurant, going to a movie, or going to a gym, those are non-essential services that you shouldn't be at risk at with yourself or with your kids when you do. And quite frankly, if we can continue to encourage those who are still hesitating to get vaccinated, that's how we get through this. Unfortunately, Mr. O'Toole is not making that choice. He's made the choice to have a big tent party that is big enough to hold all sorts of anti-vaxxers within it. That's why he can't even convince his own candidates to get vaccinated. How's he going to convince Canadians who are hesitant to get vaccinated if he doesn't enforce vaccination on his candidates? And more than that, we've seen he has candidates who are not fully vaccinated visiting seniors' homes. He has a candidate in southern Manitoba who's been spreading anti-vax propaganda online. These are not responsible decisions by someone who wants to lead Canada, because I know Canadians want to get done with this pandemic. Mais c'est pas juste sur ça. Sur les armes à feu, sur les armes d'assaut que nous avons bannies l'année passée, il a indiqué qu'il va les ramener, il va faire une étude avec les propriétaires d'armes à feu pour voir quelles armes à feu qu'il va ramener. C'est pas ça que les Canadiens veulent. Sur les garderies à 10 $ à travers le pays, il va déchirer ses ententes et empêcher non seulement les familles d'avoir accès à des garderies à 10 $ par jour, mais il va aussi empêcher notre économie de grandir de la bonne façon avec des femmes de plus en plus dans le marché du travail. On a vu au Québec, ça fonctionne, ça doit fonctionner à travers le pays, mais M. O'Toole n'est pas en train d'avoir ce leadership-là. And the big one for me is, and I can't help but dwell on it with Jenica standing beside me, is that in 2021, you don't have a plan for jobs and the future of the economy if you don't have a plan to fight climate change. And he doesn't. We all know, right across the country, that we have to step up with even more urgency in the fight against climate change. And he's proposing to drop our targets back to the Stephen Harper level, and continues to be unable to convince people in his own party that climate change is real. He's going to resurrect the Northern Gateway pipeline despite his denials. He has actually said that. And he just doesn't understand that we have to attack climate change with the same kind of intensity and urgency that we've had on dealing with this pandemic, and he's choosing to not do that. But the thing that also is, I think, surprising to a lot of folks in this election is that neither the Green Party nor the NDP actually chose to step up with a real and ambitious plan on climate change. We all know when it comes to climate change, we have to listen to science. We have to listen to those experts. We have to do everything we can to keep increase in temperatures below 1.5 degrees if we're going to avoid catastrophic climate change around the world. The science tells us that. And science has also, top experts and top climate scientists have put forward a series of encouragements in books and papers and studies on what it is we need to do to reduce Canada's carbon footprint while at the same time preparing for the jobs of tomorrow. All that information is out there. So my question is, why didn't the NDP do its homework? Because if you're going to listen to experts on how urgent dealing with climate change is, you also have to listen to experts when they evaluate the plans you've put forward to fight climate change. And I just came yesterday from a big climate announcement with the former head of the Green Party, the leader of the Green Party of British Columbia, Andrew Weaver, an extraordinary man who is himself a climate scientist of global renown, but from his time in politics, operating in the BC government, he also understands climate policy deeply. And he stood beside us, the way Jenica is standing beside me now, and fully endorsed the Liberal plan to fight climate change as the only way forward for the country. Another top climate scientist and economist, Mark Jacquard, at Simon Fraser University in BC, graded the various climate plans. The Liberal plan gets an 8 out of 10, because better is always possible, but 8 out of 10 is the strongest plan out there. The NDP, they got a 2. They got a 2 out of 10 by one of the top climate scientists in the country because they didn't do their homework. So the choice for progressive Canadians, the choice for Canadians who care about climate change, and Jenica, you must be feeling pretty good about the choice you made, is the Liberal Party of Canada is the only party that is there to fight climate change with a real plan that'll support Canadians and protect the planet, and that's the choice Canadians need to make. Alors, mes amis, je vous remercie énormément pour votre attention, pour votre implication, pour tout l'appui que vous donnez à Jenica depuis les débuts. Il nous reste quelques jours. On continue de cogner sur les portes. We're going to keep knocking doors. We're going to keep getting out there, sharing that message that we cannot afford to let the Conservatives take Canada back. We need to move forward for everyone. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. Thank you.